making sure that our streams get online here. So I'm just waiting here. So it looks like our Facebook group, To Cry a Dry Tear, is online. And YouTube is kicking in. It looks like it's trying to hook up. So we'll be right with you shortly. And I'm looking at my Facebook, Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children. Looks like that's coming online, and our Facebook's online, and it looks good. So what I'm going to do is going to come on here, and there. So hello everybody. We're live, and my name's Bill McPhee, and I want to welcome you to Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children. And this is a live broadcast that I do every Sunday evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And today I have a guest. Today we have Dan Barrett, who's a successful business person and who has dealt with depression. But before we bring Dan on, I just want to share a little bit about this live stream and talk a little bit about that. So this is my name's Bill McPhee, and I was actually diagnosed with schizophrenia in 1987. And I published a magazine called SZ Magazine. It was a mental health magazine for 23 years. I'm retired now. However, I've just recently started this broadcast in this group page, Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children. And I have this book. I've written that in 2014 called To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. And you can get that if you go to our website, which is billmcphee.ca. So before we get into Dan's story and I introduce Dan, I just want to tell you that we're on YouTube Live. We're also on Twitter, and we're also on Facebook, my group, my business page, To Cry a Dry Tear, and also the Facebook group Helping Parents of Mentally Ill Children. I just want to say, if you're interested in this, if you'd like to be a guest at some time, if you're head of an organization or want to share about your organization, or just feel that you have something to say, you can always contact me, and we can bring you on this show and on this program and just interview you, and very candidly. So I'm going to bring Dan in a bit. So I'm just going to switch over here. So we'll be right back, and we'll get Dan settled into the studio, and then we'll be right back in a second. So bear with me. Okay, Dan, come on in. Come on in here, and introduce you. You can still see us there. Okay, very good. Great. Okay, so let's come on in here. So we're going to come in here. Hi, everybody. So this is my my buddy Dan Barrett. And Dan, I know Dan from when we were little. Basically, we're broadcasting right now live from Fort Erie, Ontario, which is right by Niagara Falls, Ontario. And we're right at the mouth of the Lake Erie and the Niagara River that flows all the way down to Niagara Falls. And we're directly across from Buffalo, New York. So we can see the Buffalo skyline from where we are today. And basically, I knew Dan. We kind of grew up together. Dan and I I'm 57. I think Dan's 58, and both grew up in Fort Erie. And our fathers knew each other. My parents are passed away, and Dan's parents are passed away. But Dan's father and my father were teammates on a bowling team, 10-pin bowling team, and they were quite a good bowling team, weren't they, Dan? And yeah,
they actually won an All-Ontario championship. Ontario is one of the provinces in Canada, and they actually won an All-Ontario bowling championship back in the 50s, and they were also voted into our local sports Hall of Fame for their exploits. So they go way back. Our families go way back.
Yeah, and I remember not too long ago, quite a while ago, they had a banquet. We have what's called the Fort Erie Wall of Fame. and it's certain athletes and different people who've come from this area who's made it big, and they actually got on the Wall of Fame, and they brought them back when they were in their 80s or late 70s, and they brought them back and they did sort of a dinner for them, and it was really neat. It was very nice to see elderly people reminisce and look back on the times and everything like that. Now, Dan and I, we have a claim to fame. One of our claim to fame is when we were teenagers. I guess we were about 12 or 13 years old.
Yes.
We got entered into the Guinness World Book of Records. And what we did, we got a bunch of our friends, probably around what, 11, 12, 13 of us, 15 of us, and we played ball hockey for straight 24 hours straight, and that was all of our friends, and we played ball hockey, and we made a big deal of it, and we had our pictures taken, and everything was in the paper. And I remember the article that you brought to me not too long ago, and showed us all the names and everything. So we actually did that, which was kind of neat, eh, Dan?
Yes, we were. I turned 14 that day. I think Bill's 13. And ball hockey is basically playing ice hockey on the street with a tennis ball and sticks. And we played 24 hours nonstop without a break. And all I really remember of it is going home the following morning and being so exhausted that I just fell on the bed and passed out. And my feet were blistered for 3 days. And what's kind of interesting too is one of the players that we played with actually went on to an NHL career and won a Stanley Cup for the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, who was that? That was
Mike Lawler.
Mike Lawler, yeah.
Mike Lawler. So
NHL, yeah.
Not only did Bill and I become famous, our 15 minutes of fame, but our friend also went on to win a Stanley Cup, which is actually quite rare for a hockey player to win. So
yeah.
Quite a bit happened that day.
Yeah, and you might have remember passing out on your bed, but I remember the next day of having blisters on my feet from that big time. Yeah.
Big time.
So anyways, Dan, let's talk a little bit about your background. Tell us about you went to school, you went to university. Let's talk a little bit about your university days.
I grew up in Fort Erie in our town. Then I went to Ryerson University in Toronto for 4 years, and then I worked in the Toronto area. I managed a gas station for a few years. Then I worked for Boots drugstores as a manager. Then I went on to work for an airline called Ward Air as an in-flight service manager. And all the time I always wanted to have my own business, much like Bill's. And around 28 years ago I started a mystery shopper business where I enter a business as a customer and I evaluate advertising, marketing, and most importantly customer service. And I give that report to the owner of the store. No one knows I'm entering the store and doing the report except for the owner, so that way they get an unbiased, objective view of how their company is being viewed and experienced by a customer.
Right. And I don't know if you remember this, Dan, or not, but Dan had to do a job. He used to work for the Buffalo Sabres NHL team, and he did some mystery shopping for around there. And Dan had to go to that hockey game one night, and he invited me at an extra ticket, so I went with him. And I'll never forget this: is that we're in the audience, we're in the stands and that. And Dan told me before, he says, I'd like to get the autograph of, I forget what it was, Yvon Cormier, yeah.
Cormier, yeah.
And he was a coach then, right? And he was in the box, and Dan said, I'm going to get his autograph. And I'm thinking, yeah, right, all these people and everything there. But believe it or not, Dan went behind the bench, walked right up there and got his attention, and somehow you got his autograph and everything. And I was really impressed with that. Yeah, anything's possible. Yeah. So that was kind of neat. Yeah. So
shocked.
Yeah. So now Dan, we have you on here. We were talking about depression. I've dealt with depression. I was hospitalized 6 different times. I lived in 3 group homes. I had a suicide attempt, and I spent 5 years on the couch in a deep, dark depression for 5 years. And even though my depression, I was diagnosed with schizophrenia, but because of the negative symptoms, the lack of motivation, the lack of drive, and everything with depression, I was totally on the couch and inactive. And Dan, you told me we connected not too long ago, and Dan's been fighting depression as well, right?
Yes.
So tell us, let's talk a little bit about that, Dan. Tell us a little bit your story that way.
I think I always had a minor bout of depression my entire life. I used to remember being in high school and university, and whenever the winter months came, I was always a bit more withdrawn and quiet, and especially during the Christmas holidays. For some reason, when I had a break from school, maybe I wasn't around people as much. Growing up in a home where my older brother and sister were long gone, and my parents, who were very loving, but I always found around Christmas, during the deepest, darkest part of winter, I become more withdrawn and quiet. And it really wasn't until roughly about 15 years ago where I started finding myself being a lot more agitated, a lot more withdrawn, and thoughts of suicide. And at that time, especially with the anger issues and the lack of patience, I went to a doctor, and the doctor diagnosed me with depression and put me on pills. Mm-hmm. And even though the pills have worked off and on over the years, there are still times where I still do have suicidal thoughts. And to me, the best way I've heard depression described is a lack of hope. So if things are really going bad the way I perceive them, a lack of hope, things are getting better. Maybe I'm not getting along with people. Maybe people are treating me wrong, or I'm seeing in the news too much negative media. I feel lack of hope, and then I just start saying to myself, why do I want to be here? Mm-hmm. And luckily, through knowing Bill and talking to other people with depression and having my dosages changed, it's helped me control the depression. I also feel a lot of it has to do with the seasonal
affective disorder.
Yes, seasonal affective.
Yeah.
I really find in the summertime, when you're active outside, seeing a lot of being in the sunshine, a lot of vitamin D, interacting more with people, for me, it's really helped. But everybody's reaction to depression is completely different.
And Dan, you're kind of fortunate that way, that Dan kind of travels a lot, and he goes to Cuba a lot. You go to Cuba several times a year with the light, sunshine, and the warmth, and that kind of counteracts a seasonal disorder kind of thing by going there, right?
Definitely.
And,
Definitely. Even in the winter here, if it's a sunny day, I always drag Bill out for a walk.
Yeah.
And I try to get as much sunshine as possible. A mutual friend of ours has even suggested on sunny days not to wear any sunglasses. So that way you get as much vitamin D into your system. And I found that's helped. And another thing that's helped is taking a drop of vitamin D every day. But as Bill mentioned, I try to go south in the winter at least once a month, and I'm fortunate enough that I can afford to do that. I do it very cheaply, but I try to get to warmth and sunshine. Again, I'm just more active. I'm in sunlight, and that seems to hold me over for a few weeks. And when I feel worn down again, it's usually time to leave again. And luckily, that's helped me quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. And with that, going to Cuba in the sunshine and everything like that, it helps because it's a different environment too, right?
Yes.
You're getting out of the same environment. And when it's winter here, so you probably go down a lot during the winter too, though, right? More than that.
Always during the winter.
Always during the winter.
In the summertime here, as you know, Bill, it's warm.
Yeah.
We have a lot of sunshine, and it's fine. But once we hit late November, December, January, February, March, maybe even April, that's when I really like to get away.
Yeah.
And to be in sunlight.
Right. Now, I've always was amazed though with Dan, and I had to kind of question this because when I was depressed, when I was going through my depression, I was very lethargic on the couch all the time, and just didn't want to do anything. And maybe that was because of the schizophrenia part of my illness. But what always amazed me when talking with Dan and then about his depression is that he was still active. you rode your bike still constantly, like when you're in the summer when the weather permitted.
Yes.
We would go for walks. Like I would never go for a walk on my own, and you'd always call and say, well, let's go for a walk and everything. So what I was amazed by Dan, even though he was depressed, you still had the energy or the willpower or something to get out and to be active. And that surprised me, because a lot of people with depression just lose their ability to enjoy and do anything, because they say everything's meaningless. Why should I go for a walk, or why should I ride my bike, or why should I go outside or something like that? And instead of huddling for going to a corner and for all the time, you actually got out, and that amazes me.
Um, yes and no. There were a lot of times though that you didn't see me when I would spend say like a week not even leaving the house, type of thing. I would always try to get up because I guess I was aware enough to know that if I didn't, it would get worse. So I always tried to push myself to at least get out of bed, take a shower, and at least get up. But I always felt even when I got up and took a shower, and the days you didn't see me, I would lay down the entire day. It was almost too much even to lift my head up, even to sit up. It was far more easier to lay flat. Again, even in the wintertime, I still feel some days that it's far more easier just to lay on the couch, because the energy to even get up. But I knew that if I did not get up and call you and didn't see people, it would just get worse and worse and worse. So I forced myself out, even though I was still having the suicidal thoughts and not wanting to do it. It was like, you better do it, or you might dig a hole so deep you're not going to get out of.
Right. And with depression, I mean, we think about, like you mentioned, it's hopeless. Life is meaningless. There's no meaningful in life, and even hopeless thoughts. But you even said, we talked many times about, you lack purpose. You were saying, I'm seeking for purpose. I don't have any purpose. And the fact that you don't have purpose is maybe part of a byproduct from the depression, or that catch-22 situation.
Maybe.
So talk a little bit about that, because really everybody needs to have a purpose and know why they're here and everything like that, right?
Exactly.
And you struggle with that, don't you?
Yes, because I feel that I want to contribute. Like, for example, with my business, it was really busy for a long time, and just sort of things out of my control, the business went from being very busy to very slow. And for so many years of having a purpose, of waking up in the morning, going to work, helping companies, making money, to almost evaporating, then it was like, okay, now what am I going to do? And of course, you want to do something that you like to do, and something that you feel you're being productive to society. But when I felt that I had nothing productive to society, I wasn't contributing, I was just a waste of time. And there are still days where I feel this way. Now I feel almost like semi-retired, and I guess I'm still, where you're looking for something to really dig your teeth into, to have a sense of purpose. So I feel we all need a sense of purpose, and I don't know. My father was a milkman. My mother was a stay-at-home housewife, and I guess I just always wanted to achieve something or do something bigger or better than just being a bump on the log. So not having any sense of purpose, your days are meaningless. You really feel like you're going nowhere. You're just, again, just sitting like a bump on the log, and you're not moving forward. And that's that lack of purpose, which then makes you get frustrated, which then makes you get angry, which then makes you feel even more hopeless and depressed, which is all ties into a big ball and brings you down. Yeah. To me, at least.
Now, Dan, you have one girl, Lucinda. She's in university now, your daughter. And you mentioned that as a parent, this is helping parents of mentally ill children. And you mentioned, I think, to me that Lucinda goes through a little bit of anxiety or something too.
My daughter has anxiety, and she is also taking medication for depression.
Hmm.
as well.
So, what can you share? What do you think? Give some insight. So, this helping parents of mentally ill children, which this group is all about. Um, what would you like people to know, or what do you think as how do you think, what kind of advice can you give parents?
To be sensitive to it. If a child says, if you find your child withdrawing and not wanting to talk about it, just don't say snap out of it, because they're not going to.
Yeah.
I would just say, I feel you may have a problem. Do you want to speak to me about it? If not, I'm here to listen to you. Show that you're concerned about them, you care for them. If they don't want to talk to you, maybe they can speak to someone else. For example, my daughter, she has a therapist that she sees, and as part of her getting her medication in the United States, she has to see a therapist at least once a month to talk. And I'm sure, even though my wife and I feel that that we're sensitive to what she wants to talk about, she wants to have things private so she can talk to a therapist. And talking about things definitely does help. But be sensitive to that, off your your ear, and if they want to talk to somebody else, that's fine. Never dismiss it. Again, it could be just a teenager going through a difficult period. Their hormones are changing. But in my daughter's case, maybe because I had depression, I'm pretty sure now, looking back at my mother, I think she had some mild depression, so maybe it runs in her family. So, but to be open to it. The one thing I'd like to say to parents as well is, and what I said to Bill many times, is the biggest problem that I hear about depression, which may lead to suicide, is so many people feel, oh, I could have done more. I could have done more. I've always felt, personally, with my depression, if I ever got to the point of taking my own life, it was my own choice. Nobody could have done anything to have prevented it. And I see people losing years off their life saying, oh my God, I should have did this, I should have done that. And unless you were very negative towards a person, there's really nothing you can do. For example, when Robin Williams passed away, I heard so many people feeling bad, which is unnatural, but I think he made a conscious decision to take his life, and he personally was at the end of his own rope. So please, I hope and pray nobody ever loses their child, but if it gets to the point, if that ever happens, grieve, but don't beat yourself up for the rest of your life to feel that you could have done something different or something different.
And I think that a lot of people who haven't really gone through depression or suicidal thoughts, and that we talk about emotional pain, and there truly is, when you're so depressed, it is painful. It's actually emotionally painful.
Yes.
And and just it's deep and dark, and it's very, very, very hard. Did you reach out? Did you reach out for help, or did somebody kind of see and then reach out? How did you find out? What were the steps in getting maybe even diagnosed or something like that?
My ex-wife noticed that I was depressed. She has a medical background, and she suggested I say something to a doctor. And again, being, I guess, male and stubborn, I didn't listen for quite a while. But when I finally did listen, I spoke to a doctor, and they put me on medication. I found with myself, I was just lacking any patience with anybody. Yeah. If I was in a lineup and somebody was taking too much time, I could just find myself wanting to scream at them, like, hurry up, like, get out of the way, move. And I was just over angry, over frustrated, and that was supposed to be one of the symptoms. Another thing was lack of motivation to do things. For example, just before I was diagnosed, I used to love to play hockey with friends a couple of nights a week. I would go out with friends. I like to listen to music. And it got to the point where I didn't even want to hear noise, because it was too much for me. I stopped playing hockey. I didn't want to speak to friends. I totally withdrew. And again, those are more symptoms. But when I started getting to that point, I went, there is something wrong with me. I should see if a medication will work. I've talked to Bill about this a lot too, about going to see a therapist and for talk therapy. It's really helped with my daughter. Personally, with me, maybe I haven't met a therapist that I've trusted or really thought they cared. The therapists that I've talked to always seem to be come up with a quick answer that suits everybody, but everybody's individualistic.
Hmm.
And I guess I never found anybody that I could trust and listen to enough that could have helped me talk wise. But for me, the medication has really helped level things out and made my dark moods not as dark at all.
Now, you were never hospitalized at all, is that correct, Dan? Or were you? You
No,
never really hospitalized?
I was never hospitalized, but at one time I mentioned to somebody I was thinking of committing suicide, of things thinking about her. And as a result, they called the police. The police took me into custody. They took me to a psych ward, and I was in there for a day. And sadly, in the psych ward, I was amazed at how horrible the treatment was for somebody with mental illness. And I almost felt that it even made it worse. It made me feel personally that, wow, if I had really been as deeply depressed as they thought I was, I probably would have killed myself. Just the way the nurse reacted and the way the police reacted in the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
So I was never hospitalized, but I did spend a couple hours in custody because of that.
Yeah, and you're fairly open with you're fairly open with your depression and everything.
Yes.
Like so, let's talk a little bit about prevalence, because I mean, like, probably you meet people and share, and when you get to know, you've probably come along a lot of people with depression in your travels, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I do, and I tend not to bring it up right away because, again, with some people there's a phobia. But if they bring it up, I will definitely say it. Like if someone's not feeling good and saying that they feel depressed, I'll say right away, well, I have depression. I take medication. This is what my experience has been. Maybe you should see a doctor or something. As Bill and I have talked about on our walks many times, thank God that more and more people are becoming more aware of mental illness, if you want to call it, depression, schizophrenia, everything else, and it's being a topic, not that much of a taboo. Again, there's always going to be a lot of negative, narrow-minded people that think they don't have the problems, but ironically, the people that I find that are like that tend to have just as many issues as we all do. We all have that.
Yeah. Well, I just want to, before we move on, I just want to let you talk a little bit about the book that you wrote, but which is getting onto entrepreneurship. But is there anything else you'd like to say about depression or your story or anything like that before we change subjects to your book?
Once again, the biggest thing I can say to parents is be patient and be willing to listen. And I mean really listen, not just nod your head if you're going to listen to your child or anybody with depression or any mental illness. Show that you care by putting down your phone, making eye contact with them, that you're really listening to them, that you really care. Again, so many people can talk, can say they care and listen, and meanwhile they're on the phone, they're looking around, and trust me, when someone's depressed, their senses are very acute. They're feeling very bad as it is, and every little facial tick you're showing or any time you're not listening, they notice it and they can tell right away. And if you're not listening to someone who they trust, you're only going to make them more depressed. So really listen to them. Listen, repeat back what they're saying, be understanding, offer help, do what you can. If the person doesn't want to talk, tell them that, hey, I'm always here to listen to you. I can't understand it, but I'm willing to help you. And if you're not, don't, because you're only going to make it worse. If someone feels that you're not listening or you don't care, you're probably just making them even more depressed. And at that point, maybe they won't trust you at all. Maybe they won't say a thing. So no one's perfect, but do your best to listen and to show you have empathy for the person.
Very good, very good. So as you mentioned, Dan had a business before as a mystery shopper, worked for some major big corporations. So let's see your book, Dan. So basically, talk a little bit about your book.
So based on my business experience over 25 years, I wrote this book called The 32-Second Entrepreneur, Concise and Practical Advice for Opening a Small Business. And I wrote this for anybody at all, anybody, say with depression, anybody in a dead-end job that is thinking of going into business. And the reason I wrote it is I see so many people searching for jobs now, or they're laid off and they want to start a business, and they don't know how to go about it, and they spend tens of thousands of dollars opening a business, whereas if they had read this book that gives you a very simple background on asking questions why you should start a business, how to start a business, to even determine if you can open a business or you have the temperament and personality for it, it will give you a big head start before you spend any more money. So I wrote that book for that reason.
Yeah.
If anybody wants a copy, contact Bill through this.
Through our website, send me an email, or go to our contact page on billmcphee.ca. So yeah.
And they're $20 each.
Yeah.
Basically, my blurb on the back of the book I'll read to you. Tired of reading business books and spending hours searching for nuggets of information within? This collection of over 100 short articles quickly provides you with the tools to open a new business or improve upon any existing business. And this is based throughout my years as a consultant. I worked for Wendy's, Burger King, a big chain of car washes called Delta Sonic, Premier Liquor, the #1 liquor store in the United States. I worked for the NFL, Buffalo Bills, the NHL, Buffalo Sabres, along with a lot of small businesses. Yeah. And this basically tells you what I saw at these businesses that worked and what really worked well. Again, to give you some insights, a head start if you've never actually managed a business or owned a business. So that's my blurb.
Very good. Okay, well, thanks a lot, Dan. So we're going to wrap it up here. Unless there's anything you're good or want to mention anything else?
If you have any questions about depression that I can answer, please feel free to contact me through Bill. We'll be able to help you. I see Bill quite a bit, so I can very easily answer any questions. I can try my best based on my experience.
Very good. So yeah, and my book is called To Cry a Dry Tear, Bill McPhee's Journey of Hope and Recovery with Schizophrenia. And you can read the first chapter absolutely free if you go to our website, billmcphee.ca, and you can read the first chapter for free. And if you'd like to be part of this, be interviewed, if you think that you have something to share or tell parents of mentally ill children, just go to my website, billmcphee.ca, contact me, we can set something up. We're live every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll end it there.
And if you live out of town or anywhere in the world, Bill can contact you through Skype.
Yeah.
I just happen to be in the same area as Bill. That's why I'm here live in studio with him tonight.
Yeah.
But Bill can contact you and
go through Skype.
Through Skype. So anywhere in the world, if you want to come on and help Bill and help children and parents, please do.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Bye, everybody. God bless, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.